Hello, budding sociologist. The topic for today are three terms which is used in sociology very often. Now, these three terms are very important as far as sociology is concerned. I would be discussing these three terms in this discussion. The three terms are ethnocentrism, xenocentrism, and cultural relativism. Now, the interesting part is that all these three terms are related to the term culture. Therefore, before delving into these important terminologies, let us understand the term culture. What is culture? What is the meaning of culture? Let us have a glance on what E.B. Taylor has to say about culture. He says, culture is a complex whole which includes knowledge, belief, art, morals, customs, and any other capabilities and habits acquired by man as a member of society. Now, this is a very important definition by E.B. Taylor. It can be said that culture is a way of life and it fulfills human needs which persist through tradition, characterizes the group culture, and it is always learned and transmitted through generations. Now, the first term, you have to listen very carefully. The first term is ethnocentrism. Now, this term was coined by sociologist W.G. Summer in his book Folkways, which he wrote in 1906. Coming to the etymology of this term has been derived from two Greek words, ethnos, which means nation, and kentron, that means center. Coming to the meaning of this word, ethnocentrism, we can discuss it in few points. Now, ethnocentrism is a kind of belief which considers our own cultural practices, behavior, belief, and people as superior to any other culture. It is also termed as a cultural ignorance, as you are not aware about other cultures. This term ethnocentrism is based on the feeling of superiority in your cultural practices. When you kind of evaluate your culture with other culture, you find your culture more superior than the other cultures. This feeling of superiority complex in one's own culture is called ethnocentrism. Now, this particular term, we can say, breeds discrimination. It could be on the basis of race, it could be on the basis of way of life, it could be on the basis of caste, your skin color. If you are considering your culture or your cultural practices as more superior than other cultures on whatever base or what on whatever basis, then it is called ethnocentrism. If I put it very simply, we can say that judging other cultures as inferior for their food preference or language or clothing or any other way of life is called ethnocentrism. Now, coming to the next term, what is that next term? The next term we will discuss is xenocentrism. Now, this term was brought to the fore by American sociologist Donald Kent and Robert Burnett in the 1950s. Now, coming to the meaning of this term, it is a belief. Like ethnocentrism was a belief, in the same way, this is also a belief which is quite contrary to the term ethnocentrism. This is just the opposite of the term ethnocentrism. It is a belief which is based on the idea of preference for the foreign, which means anything which is not yours. You're preferring something outside your culture. You like something which is outside your culture. That means you are considering another culture as superior to your own culture. preference for the foreign. That is why I use this kind of quote. Now, the difference in other culture, there is always a difference between two cultures. Now, that particular difference in your culture, or for that matter, in the other culture, makes it more superior. Xenocentrism is the opposite of ethnocentrism, as I said earlier, which considers the other culture as more superior than your own culture. Example of xenocentrism could be when we endorse foreign brands by negating our own brands. Now this is called xenocentrism. As I said, this is opposite of the term ethnocentrism. Now, after discussing the terms like ethnocentrism and xenocentrism, finally we will come and discuss the term cultural relativism. Now, this term cultural relativism was mainly discussed by a social theorist, Alan Locke, in 1924. And there are many more sociologists who are associated in the development of this particular term, cultural relativism, which is very important as far as sociology is concerned. Franz Boas was there, Robert Louis was there. Coming to the meaning of this term, cultural relativism, it is a sociological concept which is based on the idea. Now, you please listen carefully. You will understand that how, in what way, this is very much different from xenocentrism and ethnocentrism. As I was saying, that cultural relativism is a sociological concept which is based on the idea that all cultures have their own way of life and social standards, and no culture is superior or inferior to any other culture. Cultural values or beliefs are relative to their own cultural setting. When I was discussing what is the meaning of culture, culture is a way of life, and that particular way of life is developed to fulfill the needs of that particular community during any point in time. So culture basically has been developed or it came from the word colere, which means to cultivate, to develop. Now, cultural relativism is saying that all the cultures, they may be different, but no culture is superior or inferior for that matter in any way. They are just fulfilling their daily needs by a way of life, which is called culture. So, as I said, that it is a perspective of a particular culture which has to be taken into consideration. Rights and wrongs, there are no rights and wrongs. We might be following a way of life which is right for us, but it may not be the case when we talk about another culture. For that culture, whatever we are pursuing or doing or developing to fulfill our needs might appear wrong to the other culture. So, as I said, it is a perspective of a particular culture, and all cultures have their own way of life and social standards. So we can infer, on this, that cultural relativism promotes understanding of other cultural perspectives that may not be part of one's own culture. Now, as I have discussed, ethnocentrism, xenocentrism. Ethnocentrism means superiority of your own culture. Xenocentrism means preference for the foreign. That means you are feeling quite inferior about your own culture. And here comes the third term, cultural relativism, which kind of negates both ethnocentrism and xenocentrism. It says no, No one is superior or, for that matter, inferior. All cultures have to be studied from their perspective or cultural setting. The answer or the solution, we can say, to the terms like ethnocentrism and xenocentrism could be the idea of cultural relativism, which as a term is more encompassing, tolerant, or non discriminatory and egalitarian in approach because it is considering all the cultures as equal. So we discussed today very important three topics. We discussed about culture, we discussed about ethnocentrism and xenocentrism, and more importantly, we also discussed the cultural relativism. So by now you might have understood what is ethnocentrism, xenocentrism, cultural relativism, and what is the difference between the three. So that is the end of today's discussion. I shall be seeing you soon. Till then, wait for the next sociology scoop. Thank you so much.